Let me introduce you to a nation killer, a missile often referred to as the world's deadliest nuclear weapon, the Sarmat. In the West, it is often called the Satan II, and indeed, its lethality is absolutely hellish. It's 35 meters long, and once it reaches top speed, it can fly at Mach 20, meaning 20 times the speed of sound itself. Once launched from an underground missile silo, which is basically a rocket launch site hidden underground with a small opening for the missile to exit, it goes straight into space, then drops back down to Earth close to its target. It has a payload meaning the weapon actually strapped to the front of this thing that can split 16 different ways and be guided into 16 different targets. The payload, if that wasn't bad enough, is nuclear. That's right. Sarmat is a ICBM, an intercontinental ballistic missile. 16 guided nukes per missile coming down from space. Welcome to hell. The range of such a weapon? Planet Earth. Literally anywhere on Earth can be hit by this monstrosity. The firing of such a missile would almost certainly lead to the firing of others in response, and even if it was not responded to, a single one of these, with its 16 free-flying nukes, could kill an entire nation, taking out any military base, any port, any city it lands on, and leaving the land polluted with nuclear or radioactive waste for generations after its strike. The ash and smoke it lifts into the air from the impact would send humanity into a nuclear winter, which would darken the sky and make the earth colder to the point where crops around the world would fail and millions would starve, eventually starve to death. It is a weapon the use of which cannot be justified, and yet its existence is arguably justified. Sarmat is the Russian Federation's answer to any nuclear-armed nation on Earth using those nuclear weapons in their possession. Fire one, receive one back. And that will spell the end for the age we live in and will usher in a unstable, darker, colder age. Sarmat reportedly had a catastrophic launch failure earlier this year. But even so, many analysts, both in and out of the Russian Federation, predict it will come online and be ready for use within a year. The launch failure was, of course, a test, not an actual launch against a target. Now, mutually assured destruction, MAD, is a doctrine often tied to nuclear weapons. Indeed, firing one of these is MAD, but MAD, M-A-D, stands for mutually assured destruction. It's the promise that if any nation on Earth fires something like this, not only will they destroy whatever it was aimed at, the aggressor who fired it will receive one back, which will destroy them too. MAD. M-A-D. Everybody loses. You can forget Article 5 of NATO, ladies and gents, with this one. An attack by one is an end for all. If I show you this picture, what comes to mind? For me, this black and white picture brings dread. It causes the hairs on my arm to stand up. It gives me goosebumps. This, if you don't know, is the gatehouse that marks the entrance to Auschwitz-Birkenau, a death camp that was set up in German-occupied Poland in World War II. This is the Holocaust. It's a camp where a horrifying number of civilians, by some estimates millions, were brought in on trains like cattle or coal. These people, Jewish in faith, are here because of their Jewish faith. They were killed, they were led into gas chambers and killed. Men, women, and even children, if you can imagine. Terrified, helpless, powerless, unclothed at the hands of the fascist regime of Nazi Germany, led of course by Adolf Hitler. I have found myself, these last 400 days, getting the same feeling of dread that I feel when I see pictures of Auschwitz, when I read some of the news coming out of Gaza, the besieged Palestinian territory. Here, some of you might turn off by doing whatever. thinking, that's not the same, you can't compare that, how dare you, blah, 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 blah. Well, hear me out. I'm not forcing you to call it the same thing, but hear me out. Hear what I've got to say. Hear the evidence. Then you decide how similar it sounds, how much you can stomach. The most monstrous news I have come across in recent days, I shared with you in this TikTok. Last week, Dr. Munir al-Bursh, Director General of the Ministry of Health in Gaza, stated that Israel is using weapons in northern Gaza that they have never seen before. He described these weapons as causing people to vaporize. I said vaporize. I remind you that during the Holocaust, in Auschwitz-Birkenau and other death camps, the victims were gassed to death and then burnt in crematoriums, mass crematoriums, basically vaporizing them. Earlier this year, August, the Gaza Civil Defense revealed that 1,760 Palestinians had been completely vaporized with no biological remains left. They stated that Israel uses internationally banned weapons that disintegrate bodies upon impact. Now, you might think immediately, if you're on the fence or if you're pro-Israel, where's the evidence? This is just what Hamas are saying. Well, guess what? Let me carry on. Hamas has demanded the formation of an international committee to investigate Israel's use of internationally banned weapons. What a world we live in, by the way. Hamas is designated, I remind you, a terrorist organization by many nations in the Western world. Yet they are the ones calling for full and free access into Gaza. They say, come see. Come see with your own eyes, oh international community. Come see and hear for yourselves what is going on, and you decide. That's what they're saying. They're not engineering a narrative and saying to you, lap up what we're giving you. And Israel is considered an ally of many of these same Western nations, yet they are the ones carrying out, yet Israel is the one carrying out a genocide by some definitions. They are the nation whose prime minister has had an arrest warrant issued for him from the highest court on earth. They are the country closing down news media in Israel and in the occupied Palestinian territories and Gaza. They are the ones who don't want you to see what's going on. They are the ones stopping you from seeing for yourself. They're the ones stopping you from going to Gaza and recording things and deciding for yourself who's in the right and who's in the wrong. Are people going to hear about Gaza years from now? This is my thought. Are people going to hear about Gaza years from now? Will there be lovely museums, darkened lights, black rooms with, faded lights, and there'll be records of people burnt to death or vaporized? Civilians, including women, mothers-to-be, kids, babies. You've seen kids and babies. You might have children, right? Kids and babies who are slaughtered or starved to death by one of the most advanced militaries on earth. Are we going to memorialize such barbarity again? I wonder what the Western world has learnt then from those black and white pictures I shared of Auschwitz-Birkenau. Those damned pictures of that gatehouse that bring dread, I'm sure, and horror to so many people. What have you learnt if you let it happen again? Fine, it's just on a smaller scale. Is that okay then? Is that all right? That people are being carted off on the back of trucks, blindfolded, and then you don't know where they are? Maybe they've been vaporized. You okay with that? You okay supporting that with your taxpayer money? I urge you all not to just believe me, right? I urge you to find for yourself the truth. Keep looking. Go deep. Look at the posts that are coming out. Look at the evidence. Look at the videos. Look at the photos of Israeli soldiers taking pictures of wagons full of men with blindfolds on, and then we never hear of those men again. Look at the clips of drone footage where the Israeli drones are looking at children, and then boom, you see an explosion and children are dead. They were kids, right? What were the kids of Hamas? Listen, even if you don't want to hear it, keep your ears open. Even if you don't want to see it because it hurts to look at, keep your eyes open. Or we are no better than those who stood by when the Holocaust was carried out. In fact, we may be worse, because this time we can see it. It's being recorded, it's being live streamed, it's on this damn app for us. And still, we did nothing? Still, we stood by? Never again must mean never again for anyone. See you on the next one. Gentleman IC has lured me into a video response. He says, Mahfouz, first of all, he calls me Marfouz. Interesting. Anyway, Mahfouz, let World War III begin. Then Russia will know what America has. No country on earth has a warplane as advanced as the B-2. It's insanely advanced beyond imagination. Just a tiny example. First off, I don't want World War III to begin, to prove the point for a variety of people like yourself who say, wait until World War III begins, then you'll see how tough XYZ country is. There is no general benefit for humanity in conflict, and I explain from a geopolitical perspective why certain conflicts are happening, why they are escalating, and why other conflicts might arise. But I certainly don't want World War III to be triggered, and I'm not at all interested in finding out which country or which block of countries, be it the Eastern Bloc or the Western Bloc or whatever bloc, is superior, because there is no outcome that I can see of any sort of global conflict that could be called a world war that results in anything except ashes, and atop those ashes there will, sure, be a king. But being king of the ashes will suck for the ashes who were once human beings. So yes, I know that there are very much I know that there's a variety of advanced technologies used by or capable in the hands of the Western powers. I have no interest in finding out how effective they are, just like I have no interest in finding out how Russia's nuclear superweapon Sarmat is. I don't have any interest in finding out how effective 16 nuclear bombs from one missile that can evade any sort of missile defense system, how effective those would be against their target. Not interested. Thank you very much. I think we should all learn about geopolitics, not to escalate or beat our chests or rattle our sabers, but to advocate for peace as often as, absolutely as often as possible, and justice and victory for natives of the respective lands across the world. See you on the next one.